Abortion challenges in January 6th are two things with the potential to significantly impact the upcoming midterms. That's according to analysis from the Cook Political Report. And later in the summer, the Supreme Court will determine the future of the landmark abortion law, Roe v. Wade. Several Republican states have recently passed restrictive abortion laws already ahead of the Supreme Court's decision. Amy Walter is the author of that article and joins us now. She is also the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Cook Political Report. Amy, it's so nice to see you, and thank you for joining us today.
Good to see you, too. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a... Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, January 6th, the images were so strong from the very beginning, and I think had a really, obvious impact on people just from watching what was unfolding that day. But a lot has happened since then. So I wonder how, all the information that has come out, all the reporting that has come out has impacted, the view of that day and how it could impact the races coming up.
Right. Well, it is really interesting given, as you said, those images were searing. And we also know that over these last few months, and really most recently, there's been a whole lot of information that has come out about some of the things that the committee has uncovered, the January 6th committee that is currently interviewing folks, interviewing materials in the House right now. They're supposedly going to have public hearings later in the spring, maybe earlier this summer, including everything from text messages that Ginny Thomas, wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, sent to the president's chief of staff in the days after January 6th. We know that there have been sit-downs with some very key members of Trump's inner circle, including his daughter, Ivanka Trump. So there's been a lot of information, and yet at the same time, voters are not particularly engaged on this issue, including Democratic voters. Polling taken by Pew Research earlier this spring in February or March asked voters what they thought about the January 6th commission and what more there was to learn. Now, not surprisingly, Republicans believe there's nothing left to learn, that Americans need to move on. Those who committed those acts need to be held accountable, but it is now what they see it as something of a political sideshow. But Democrats were also really enamored with the idea of spending more time on it either. They don't like what happened, but they're not necessarily committed to seeing more information about it. So we don't really know what the January 6th commission will do, whether these hearings are going to capture the imagination and attention of Americans. This is what those on the commission hope it's going to be able to do, or if we're just going to get back into our red and blue silos where one side is going to be fired up about it, the other side not particularly interested. What Democrats are hoping is, even though Democrats are not engaged on this right now, they will get pulled in by these hearings, and it will help to motivate these voters coming into the midterm election, voters who right now aren't particularly feeling very engaged and are pretty disappointed with what they see as an administration that's not followed through on many of their top priorities.
And of course, another big unknown that we're all trying to weigh right now is the Trump factor and how much political capital he has left heading into the midterms. I wonder if a potential prosecution of the former president for his role in the attack could be a game changer or not, because obviously we've seen him resurface. We've seen him have many, many lives after his impeachments, for example, after other things that he has been found guilty of. So will that make any kind of difference?
Right. Again, if you think about how this is going to fall, we know that Republicans will not likely be dissuaded from continuing to support President Trump or see this prosecution as something that was simply politically motivated. It may motivate Democrats more, who have been motivated, quite frankly, to come out and vote for the last 4.5 years by the presence of Donald Trump, either as a candidate or in the White House. But for independent voters, those voters who aren't paying as close attention to politics, those who don't put themselves in a very clear D or R category, to them, the most important issue is pretty simple. It's the economy. It's inflation. It is their day-to-day cost of living increases. That's what they are focused on. The Trump factor, not as significant to them. So I think the longer that Donald Trump is out of office, the harder it has been for Democrats to use him as a motivating tool, even for their own voters. But certainly it's even harder now, given where the economy is and perceptions of the economy, to get independent voters to think that Trump should be an issue in this campaign.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you about abortion, too, because obviously social issues are going to be also on people's minds as they head to the polls. So how do you think this one in particular could make a difference, given the potentially historic changes coming, and already some changes, I should say, in some states?
That's right. I mean, when I talk to Democratic and Republican strategists, all of them sort of shrug their shoulders because this would be historic. Roe v. Wade has been the law of the land for 50 years, so nobody can predict exactly what the response would be. But I do think this battle ultimately is one that's going to be fought more in the states than it is at the federal level. As you said, we're already starting to see many of these laws go into place, though technically they're in violation of the federal constitutional right to abortion. So that's what this case will help to define. But whether Roe versus Wade is substantively altered or is completely gutted or not, what we do know is that the decisions being made on this issue will be made by state legislatures and governors. It's going to be a huge topic, especially in those swing states where they're not deep blue or dark red. And those candidates are going to have to talk about that and have answers for it pretty quickly.
All right. Amy Walter, thank you so much for all of your reporting and analysis and for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.